Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 bringing to you some very sad news from the world of music, where it has been announced and confirmed that legendary drummer John Marshall has sadly passed away on September 16th, 2023, at the age of 82 years old. And for me, the passing of John Marshall is such a huge blow and such a tremendous loss for so many reasons. When you think of influential drummers as far as the UK is concerned, you of course think of Carl Palmer and Bill Bruford, but more on the prog side of music. On the other side of music, as far as jazz, rock, and fusion are concerned, the two most influential drummers come to mind when I think of all-time great drummers from the UK is of course John Heisman and John Marshall. Simon Phillips, on the other hand, he kind of sits in the middle somewhere between jazz, rock, and fusion. But as I mentioned already, when I think of two of the absolute best drummers in the world as far as the UK is concerned, John Heisman and John Marshall come to mind. And if you ask any hardcore fan or an older fan for that matter about John Marshall, just that mere mention of his name, the first image that comes to mind is the legendary silver drum kit. And John Marshall was one of the first true pioneers of the massive drum kit, if you will. And John Marshall, I consider to be a real man's man, a true gentleman, an amazing musician, reliable, and just an all round great drummer to have in your band. And from the moments that John Marshall joined Soft Machine in '73, he played in virtually every single incarnation, lineup, you name it. John Marshall was your man. You knew you had a Soft Machine lineup when you had John Marshall behind the drum kit. No matter who was in the band, no matter what the name was, if you had John Marshall there, that was your band. And from the early days, playing with Nucleus to making history with Soft Machine, playing on some of their most iconic recordings, such as Fifth, Six, Seven, Bundles, Softs, to name a few. John Marshall has been with Soft Machine through thick and thin, through the good times, through the bad times, and of course the dark times. John Marshall, an absolute incredible drummer. But aside from playing with Soft Machine, he's played with many other important artists such as Keith Tippett, Arthur Brown, Michael Gibbs, Jack Bruce, Dick Morrissey, John Abercrombie, John Sermon, Elton Dean, Reed Anderson, Eberhard Weber's Colors, you name it. John Marshall has played with them all. And I have seen Soft Machine from Soft Machine Legacy to Soft Machine. John Marshall's drum solos were always the highlight of the show. And he was one of those guys. He wasn't just a great drummer or a great musician, he was a great improviser. Every drum solo you saw was different. He had such a unique way of playing. He had that laid back style that made Soft Machine what it was. And for me, he pretty much was the man. As I said, he's played in every single incarnation. And I suppose in many ways, he was a big part of the success of this whole revival that kickstarted back in 2003 with Abracadabra by Softworks, which featured Alan Holdsworth, Elton Dean, Hugh Hopper, and of course, John Marshall himself. And it's kind of sad and ironic because I reviewed both Softworks albums not too long ago on the Jazz Albums Review series, and John Marshall, as I said, was the sole survivor of that lineup because we lost Holdsworth, Dean, and Hopper, and Marshall was the only one left. And now that he's gone, everybody who played on Abracadabra are all gone, which really saddens me so much because I really loved Softworks Abracadabra and the live album as well, which came out a couple of years ago. Both outstanding recordings. Just to hear Holdsworth and Marshall in particular together in the modern era, playing off with one another, was just an amazing treat and a true listening experience. And as I said, losing John Marshall, has left such a huge void in the music world because we've lost so many iconic figures over the years, and there's nothing to be ashamed of because John Marshall lived a great full life. He's had one of the best careers you could ever ask for, and he's left behind an unbelievable legacy of music. And as I said, he's more than made his mark in history, and he's definitely going to be remembered as one of the absolute best drummers of all time. And as I said at the beginning, when I think of two of the best drummers to come out of the UK, John Heisman and John Marshall. Because, as I said, a true gentleman's gentleman, a real man's man, old school to the core. You don't have many guys like that left these days. And he definitely lived by that motto. He was a guy who did things his own way, a pro to the end. And, he made his final recorded appearance on the newest Soft Machine recording called Other Doors. And he retired after that album was completed. And what a way to go out on top, making a brand new Soft Machine album. Can't get any better than that. He really truly went out on his shield and he went out on top. And I got to see John Marshall play his final gig with Soft Machine, and he just went out like a real gunslinger. He just went out there, kicked ass, played as good as you could ever expect or ask from him. He left it all out there on stage. He really did. And, it's quite amazing. The man was in his 80s, but he still played like a machine and didn't miss a single beat, didn't leave any note out there. He was a true force of nature and a true legend of the drums. And he is going to be dearly missed. And what an unbelievable career. And when I think of Soft Machine, obviously I think of, Carl Jenkins and John Etheridge and Alan Holdsworth. But for me, when I think of Soft Machine, John Marshall is always the first name that pops up because he's the man. To me, he was the Alan White of jazz fusion, just like Alan White was the most consistent and reliable member of Yes. John Marshall was the most consistent and reliable member for Soft Machine, and it didn't get any better than him. He truly was a special musician, and he's going to be sorely missed. So that's going to be it from me. I'm going to wrap this up now. And I just want to take this opportunity to say a special thank you to John Marshall for all of the incredible music you have left us. You will be dearly missed, and may you rest in peace. Thank you, John Marshall.